Okay, well, it's, you know, whether it's free rent or a meal or what.
No, if it's rented, it comes under the ordinance. If it's not rented, it doesn't.
Well, it's not rented, it's empty.
Well, you're asking me whether the man sells up here is rental, it's not rental.
What is it?
It's an organization that provides that place.
Okay, well, let me get to the real point now. And the point is that under this ordinance, as I understand it, that if the police or the officials have 3 complaints within a period of time, then after those 3 complaints, the landlord is notified. And then the landlord, if there's another complaint during the next 90-day period, the permit is pulled and the landlord cannot rent his property. Is that correct under here? Okay, well then, let me, and I know a lot of these people have a lot smarter things to say than I do. First off, it would seem to me as though if there's a violation at one of my properties, I should be notified on the first offense. Not wait until the 3 have happened and me have an opportunity perhaps to lose the income, have the house closed down, etc. And from a personal standpoint, let me tell you something. Under what you're asking me to do, I'm 75 years old. I've had open heart surgery, cancer, and a knee replaced. My wife is 74. Now, our rental properties are in 2 locations. So it seems to me as though that we get no representation in the town, etc. If I'm going to be asked to sit down there and babysit these properties, you can rest assured I will demand one way or another that I have a police escort with me at all times. Because I'm not going to sit down here at my age and make sure that nobody's doing the various things that you're accusing me of. That actually is the job of the police department, not the job of the landlord. That's my opinion. I am opposed to this ordinance as it's drafted. I think the town has a lot of other serious problems, some of which I've alluded to, and I thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
This guy used to teach with me. I can't think of his name.
Real quick, Mike Whitlock,
Yes, sir.
landlord, 3 properties in good neighborhoods, Patriots Land, The Heights, Delaware Avenue, great tenants, okay? If this was a perfect world, I wouldn't be here because I wouldn't be concerned about this. But today on TV, I saw a 5-year-old, okay, whose parents is being fined because he was disturbing the peace in his own house. Okay. Now, why did that make national news? It made national news because, not because the 5-year-old was disturbing the peace, it was because it was to display the problems that people can cause you. Okay. I'm worried about this because one of my tenants have 5 children. All 3 of my tenants are African American. And you're going to say, what does that mean? This is not a perfect world. I work in these houses, I try to make friends with the neighbors, and all they want to know is how many children are moving in and what race. And, you know, that scares me. So now, because of this, I have to stay up at night and worry about not my tenants, okay, not my properties, but about other people that live around them. Because those are the people that cause the problems. Okay, not in all cases. I'm sure that, you know, they all indicated that tenants sometimes cause the problems. I've been fortunate and never had that problem. Okay, but it does upset me when I'm working in the neighborhood and I have people come up to me and they want to know how many children and the race. And I try not to be prejudiced. And children, I love them. Okay, but watching TV, watching somebody get fined because The child's running up and down the floor inside of the house. That child sat on that father's lap for 5 minutes during the talk today on TV and didn't cause a disruption. I don't think any of my grandchildren can sit on my lap for 5 minutes and not cause some type of disruption. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Gadula. I have some rental properties in the Elkton area. And I thank you all for allowing all of us to speak. First, I'd like to say that it appears to me that this whole ordinance is being pushed by Mr. John Smith. He was quoted in the paper several times. Apparently, he's asking for a greater power over irresponsible landlords. Okay? The whole Perryville ordinance, from what I understand and what I read, that whole code enforcement, that was all about written requests from the residents. I have yet to hear one resident make a statement today regarding having issues, and I'd like to see if somebody does. I guess one of my questions would be, how many properties are we talking about that he's having trouble contacting? And then how many of those are from out-of-state landlords? I don't know if any of you know that answer, because I'd like to know what that is at this time. And also, I'd like to know what he defines as having a hard time contacting these landlords. Okay, because there is obviously a way to do that. All you have to do is go on to, you can get contact information from the State of Maryland's website at www.dat.state.md.us. That has the owner's name and their address and how you can contact them. That's through the Department of Assessments. It was also stated by Mr. Smith and Assisa Wig that as part of this ordinance that you have to have landlord information in case of a fire, if there's an emergency. So I guess we have to know how many people are in the home so that they can contact us. But why is this requirement just for the landlords and the rental properties? Why is this not for the residents? I guess we don't care about them? Is that what the board's saying? We don't care about them? Okay, and how is the landlord supposed to know how many people are in a house at any given time? That's not our job to police that. And what happens if at some time there is a fire and God forbid somebody gets injured or hurt and they had contacted you and you said, well, there was 3 people in the house, but there's actually 4 or 5 because they have visitors. Now, are we going to be liable for that because we gave a wrong number? I don't think we should be. I think that's a very bad idea, and I think it's unfair. This ordinance also proposes that there's supposed to be carbon monoxide detectors installed in all houses outside of the sleeping areas. I want to know why this is, again, why is this not being made a requirement for all residences within the town of Elkton? Why is this only for the landlords? Again, I think this is a bad idea. I think it's very unfair. Now, under the unlawful activity section of the ordinance, that's page number 7. We've already had plenty of us talking about it. You state that the landlord may have their rental housing permit suspended or revoked if there are repeated incidences within a specified time frame. The landlord should not be held responsible for the behavior of their tenants. They are adults. Our job is to provide housing that meets the current code. It's not to police them. The ordinance makes no provision that the landlord will be contacted in each incident to be made aware of what is happening. There's nothing in the ordinance about that. And do you have any proposal for that? Okay, we should not be the law. That's what the police officers are for. And that's what I tell all my tenants. If they ever call me, and they do, they got something going on, I say call the police. I provide the housing, let the police take care of that. And I've never, ever been contacted by the police officers regarding any past incidences that may have happened at any of my residences. I usually have to find out from some of my other tenants or maybe a neighbor if there was an incident at a property. And I do address it. As a landlords, unless you live within the town limits, we all pay taxes without being able to vote in any of the elections. That's taxation without representation. Many of us own multiple properties, and we should have a say. We're asking you to be reasonable in your decision. This proposed ordinance is unneeded, unwanted, unwarranted, unfair, unreasonable, and unnecessary, because there are already enough codes dealing with troubled properties. And if it passes, it's going to cause me and all the other landlords to increase their rent that we currently charge our tenants. In closing, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I hope everyone in this room has a happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
Jerry Dean. I've been a landlord going on 16 years. I've had hundreds of tenants during my time. Last year was the first year that I had to use the court system to file eviction to get someone out of my houses. I policed my houses myself. Okay, I had to even go into the courthouse and ask them, how do you go about filing for an eviction? Because of the family and friends and partners of mine, they thought it was smart this year, okay, or actually last year, at the end of last year, that maybe I go after a handgun permit, because I didn't have any problem going in the house and get my tenants out of the houses when they did things wrong. It took me 19 days to get a gun permit in the state of Maryland, a handgun permit. So in other words, my reputation speaks for itself. But here's the part that I'm worried about. There was a lot said tonight, okay, on the bad tenants. You want us to police the bad tenants. I'm not concerned about the bad tenants. I've been policing them since I've been in business, okay? And if I ever end up in court with a tenant trying to sue me, I'm going to fill that courtroom up with tenants that are going to be there behind me supporting me. My concern is protecting the good tenant. Okay, and whoever allowed us 3 minutes today is the smartest person in this room. Because if I offer to pay for breakfast tomorrow morning and have it brought in, if we could stay, okay, I think we need that much time. I'm just going to give you just one example that concerns me. 2 years ago, I have a tenant that lives in a house in the Elkton Heights who wants to buy the house someday. Brick home, real nice home, takes care of it as well as I take care of my home, and I've always had pride. 2 years ago, the neighbor, okay, his dog kept coming over, and my tenant called me, and he was pooping in the yard. Okay, so I told him, I said, just go over, talk to him, try to settle peacefully, your neighbors, okay. Well, guess what? They got into an argument, they got in, not a fight, but they don't like each other. So last year, okay, I get a call because this guy that's in my house works 60 hours a week, okay. He parties, when I say parties, the holidays. He has family over, friends over, and they have a cookout and what have you. And of course they drink some beer and so forth out there. Every Memorial Day, every 4th of July, every Labor Day, I get a phone call from this neighbor, Mr. Dean, I want this party stopped by the time it gets dark because I go to bed when it gets dark. You know what's going to happen this year? Okay, if this happens, I won't get the phone call. The police department's going to get it all 3 of them holidays. And what if he decides the 4th holiday, Thanksgiving, I'm in trouble. Real trouble. This is no good, it's no good at all. I don't care, that's just the bottom line.
That's
Thank you.
That's true.
Hi, my name is Ansel Kisner. I own property in Maryland. I feel this is unfair. It's targeting the landlords. We have a hard time to evict the tenants the way you have it set up. We have to have 3 court dates before we can even actually get rid of the tenant. So you're 60 days off there. And I feel that we pay taxes in the state of Maryland and the state of Elkton here, or town Elkton. We pay all the taxes we do. We actually got a raise on them taxes, and we feel that we're not getting our money's worth out of it. So we need to address that. If you're going to charge us more money, we're going to have to charge the tenant more money. And the way the economic times is right now, people need to save every dollar they can get. So if we add another $35 or $40 or $50, wherever you all decide to do, we're not going to take it out of our pockets. We're going to charge the tenants. That's the way the world works. And that's basically what I have to say. I disagree on everything you got in here. I don't think we need new laws. We got laws on the books now. The book's about this thick. We ought to activate those new laws, these laws that you got here you're trying to pass, and do the regular law that we have on the books. That's all we need to do. That's the trouble with a lot of people today. When they get in high places, they want to make new laws. Well, if you actually take care of the laws that we have, we don't need new laws. The laws we have will do the job. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone in that back row?
My name is Norman Weiner. I'm the president of Cecil County Landlord Association. I want to get right down to brass tacks. The town of Elkton already passed a nuisance tenant law about 7 or 8 years ago. The Landlord Association wrote a letter advising the town that the way it was written, it was absolutely unenforceable. It opposed district court rules and Maryland state law. To date, the town passed it anyway. To date, the law has never ever been used. So you passed one law that was useless. This code has a number of provisions that violate state law and district court rules. It is also unenforceable. I had the same conversation with the town of Perryville. They passed a similar code. I understand that you all got some advice from them. Their law has been unenforceable to date. It's been a total flop, except it does earn them $15 per property per year. So if you want to call it a tax, then just call it a tax, because it doesn't do anything else. It's been an absolute waste of everybody's time and energy. So a more practical example of the problem here. I have a tenant who sits on his porch and drinks too much beer, and the police come because he's drunk and disorderly. His best friend owns the house next door, sits on the porch, drinks beer, and is drunk and disorderly, and the police come and see him. 3 times later, you're writing me a letter to get rid of my tenant. So the guy who's an owner-occupant who's committed the exact same crimes is scot-free. The tenant is not. Do you think the ACLU is going to leave that alone? I've already talked to them about Perryville. They're waiting for the first test case. And from what I understand, the town has already had a few run-ins with groups like the ACLU and has not done so well. So you might want to reconsider this. We as the Landlord Association would be happy to meet with the town. When this came up 6 years ago, we had a number of meetings. When it came up 4 years ago, we had a number of meetings. I don't know why we haven't had any meetings this time. We had the one workshop meeting where we were told we were not allowed to speak. But other than that, there hasn't been any kind of real workshop to talk about how to solve problems. So you have a lot of technical problems. You've gotten a lot of bad advice. This is absolute waste of everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other comment. There is one good thing in here. Page 6, last paragraph. You could probably solve 90% of your nuisance building inspector visits by enforcing that paragraph, creating that as policy. If a tenant calls and requests inspection by code enforcement, the tenant must first provide proof, such as a copy of a letter sent by certified mail to the landlord for showing that they've been notified that the landlord has had sufficient time to address the issue but has failed to do so. Enforce that one paragraph. You can do that without passing this code. It can just be a policy in your building inspector's office. We'll solve 90% of your problems on that basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone in that back row up there? Okay, start right there, Doug. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Dave Willis. I have had rental property in the town of Elkton for approximately 35 years. I'm a landlord. I'm not a slumlord. When we started the workshops, a couple sessions, I had the opportunity to attend both sessions. I only wish that you had put a feeler out to some landlords to sit in on proposed revisions. I think we would have had some input. I don't need someone to tell me how to run my business. I don't need someone to inspect my properties. I don't need another fee or more paperwork. Just out of curiosity, sitting in front of me, the mayor, four commissioners, has anyone been a landlord? No? No, okay? This is a tough job. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. I go on vacation, I have all the numbers in my cell phone. I have some Section 8, you talk about inspections. We have an annual review on Section 8. By the way, they put out, do you want to raise the rent? Sometimes we don't get a raise. Those inspections are done by a licensed inspector for Section 8. We also have the lead paint situation. Each year before we start, I sit down with my files and I fill out papers for Section 8 on every property built before 1978. That's $15 a unit and a lot of paperwork. When you have a change, you have it inspected again. My family and I have quite a vested interest in this town. We have apartment buildings, duplexes, single-family homes. Most of the people sitting in front of me know how I run my business. My senior tenants at this point are just about maxed out. When you put the new sewer and water bill increase, I picked the difference up. I have some tenants that pay their own oil. I pay a lot of it. At $3.47 a gallon, the first time the tenant gets that bill, I get a call. Mr. Willis, can you help me out? I sit on the board of the County Landlord Association. We started that association a few years back with some of the people who have spoken here tonight, and we had three main objectives: to exchange ideas on how to be a better landlord, keep abreast of the ever-present changing lead paint situation, and I have to tell you, the last part, discuss undesirable tenants. I'll call them deadbeats. I'll cut right to the chase. Summing this up, I have a lot of others, but I don't want to cut it too short. The first workshop, I sat here and I listened to some comments, and Mr. Piner came up with probably the best comment all evening, and it was second, and with a nice head nod from Mary Jo. He said, we have laws on the books, we just have to enforce them. And I believe you were right, Mr. Piner, and you were right for backing it. So, Mayor, I hope you take that into consideration. You're sitting here listening to landlords. You don't have many slumlords. They're the ones you have to touch. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave, to break my monopoly
Yes.
and the education that I do, what expectation do you have when you rent to someone?
Years ago, I used to rent on a handshake because I know an awful lot of people. I mean, we're in the insurance business, real estate, development, land acquisition. I know a lot of people in the area. I would rent, say you had a son or whatever. I knew Charlie Gibbons' son or whatever. I'd rent on a handshake because I knew who was behind him. As the years went by, then we went to leases. And you know what some people think of the lease? Is about as valuable as dropping it in the trash can, because you're going to end up with court with that bad tenant. I've had bad tenants, and I know what it's like. What do I expect? If I present and all my properties, I say, or I have a lot of professional people, I expect them to respect the property, take care of it, pick up trash, pay the rent on time. If you have a problem as a tenant, you call me. Chances are you're going to get fixed that day. I don't know how many people on speed dial. It's electrician, painter, whatever. I call them. They can't get to me. They'll tell me when. I don't let a tenant hang. I've been underneath a basement at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I expect the tenant to treat my property the way I treat the tenant.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
By a show of hands, who's in favor of this ordinance here? By a show of hands, 2 people. By a show of hands, who's opposed to it? I guess we just had a vote, so you people must be opposed to this, because you didn't vote in favor of it. Is that correct? Okay. I'm totally opposed to this ordinance because you folks really don't understand what it's like to be a landlord. You've heard some really bad stories here. So I'm going to tell you another one. It has to do with the police department, where I had a bad tenant at 341 East Main Street, apartment number 3. He was disrupting everything. The tenants called me. I went over, called the police. I told the guy if he would get out immediately, I'd give his rent back, and he wanted $1,200, and his portion of the rent was $325. So I left there, and about 2 hours later, I come back to my office, and my assistant, a property manager, maintenance man were there. They were all upset because a police officer put this guy in his police car and brought him to my office to get his rent money. I had a client in there talking to my assistant property manager. During the discourse of Mr. Binger being in there, he castigated my people and then very nastily got up and walked out and took the guy back. Now he's living up on Maple Street next to a property that I manage, and I know you got 4 or 5 calls on him already because he's a nutbag. And how are we going to enforce stuff like this when we do our job? I do my job. I spend between $65,000 and $85,000 every year maintaining my properties in town. I lived here for 52 years. I live at 184 Cow Swamp Road right now. But I have a substantial investment in this town. I pay a lot of property taxes, and my water bill has went up double in the last 6 years. And I have to pay it on several buildings on East Main Street. And for me to have to put up with this kind of stuff here with additional inspections, and I really want to know what qualifications your officers, your inspectors have as far as maintaining health. What is health? Is it somebody that has 2 cockroaches walking on the floor, calling this guy up, come over here, I got some bugs, and he slaps we're going to close this place? Is that what it's going to be? Does he have those qualifications to be a health officer? I really like to see that kind of stuff. Don't pass this ordinance. You've got some really good people in this room. I mean good people. And you're making everybody mad. You're just ticking everybody off. That's all I got to say. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next row.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kevin Urick. I've been a property owner for 6 months in Elkton and a landlord for 3 months. I'm a commercial landlord, so technically this does not apply to me, but I have no illusion that if it goes to the housing rental people today, it's going to go to the commercial landlords tomorrow. So I'm going to have a couple things to say. You've heard very eloquently about how this, when it's made difficult and expensive for a businessman, it makes it difficult for them. Well, I'm going to focus on what it does to the customer, the client, the citizen. I'm a lawyer. When I came to Cecil County in 2005, shortly thereafter, I started a small civil private practice to go along with my regular legal duties. A significant portion of my practice is pro bono, which is a fancy legal term for free or very low cost representation of poor people. I operated out of my home. It only basically took me time. I was happy to do this. I was providing a service. In September, I purchased a building, which was previously the Cecil County Chamber of Commerce building at 233 on East Main Street, and put my office in there for my legal practice. found a tenant who is taking a small suite of offices on the second floor, so I'm a landlord as well. All of a sudden, I'm paying high sewer and water rates. I'm paying high property taxes. This is a new fee, it's a new expense. Dealing with regulation, dealing with additional costs have made me very aware that I've got to start thinking about, am I going to be able to afford to take this client on? That means I'm going to be looking for paying clients. I'm going to have less time for the ones who can't pay. I'm going to have less ability to serve them. And that hurts those people. The more expensive it becomes for the businessman to do what he does, the more difficult and expensive it becomes for the citizen who's seeking those services. And I just want you to think about that when you're considering things like this. Does it really make any difference, or do the current laws act? Is there some way to reduce the regulation to make it easier on the person providing the services and thereby provide a better quality of life for the citizens who live in this town? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good enough back here, right? Good. My name's Lisa Thacker. I live at 105 Mitchell Street. For the last 4 years, I've dealt with the same tenant. I've called the owner of the property. I've been in front of you guys a couple of times. The police have been called a number of times, and he's still there. He still threatens me. He still sends bottle rockets down the street behind me when I walk down the street. It's not changed, and the property owner has no interest. They don't care. I own my house. I sat out in front of my house at 11:30 at night before I even put a bid in on it. I called the police station. I asked them what kind of neighborhood I was dealing with. I drive a school bus. I don't want to deal with kids when I get home. I don't want them in my yard. I don't want them ringing my doorbell and running and their parents standing down there laughing about it. It just annoys me. Now they've decided they need 2 dogs in the neighborhood. They jump the fence and come after everybody else's. So everybody here is saying they have to defend people with children. No, you don't. If I would have wanted a neighborhood full of kids, I wouldn't have bought the house. When I bought the house, it was all privately owned. And now I've got renters right beside me. The next house beside them. And it's just not right for me either. So somebody needs to step up and take responsibility for their people and just let us relax when we get home. That's it.
Thank you.
My name is Mary Jewell. I also live in the town of Elkton. We've owned our home for 32 years. I can't say I totally agree with the ordinance the way it's written. I don't pretend to understand a lot of the language in it, but I do want to express the opinion that I think that there needs to be more accountability somewhere. Someone, if it's an ordinance that's in place that's not being enforced, then it needs to be enforced. As a homeowner, and if you're in a neighborhood that ends up going through a flux and all the houses start getting sold and then they're bought by landlords and they're rented, and those tenants are not desirable tenants, it decreases the property value of your house. I know where, outmanned, there's, with 2 people in a whole room of a different opinion, but there's a number of citizens, a number of homeowners in this town that feel like there's no recourse, that no one seems to care that you might have a tenant that's undesirable. No one has accountability. If it lies with the police department, then that's where it needs to lie. If it lies with the landlord, some decisions need to be made, some enforcement needs to happen. I can see there's problems with the ordinance. I assume that's why there's this discussion and it's a draft. But something needs to be done. And I guess I'm very naive. I'm very surprised that landlords did not have to have a license or permit for each of their units. I find that surprising. Naive maybe, but surprising. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next row. Next, Dwight.
Thank you. My name is Dwight Hare. I'm a small business owner here in Elkton and a property owner. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I know you're all really concerned about the safety, the conditions of the property in Elkton, the appearance of the property in Elkton, protection of individuals and their welfare in the town of Elkton, and the maintenance standards of the property of Elkton. You have a lot of landlords here tonight. They're really property owners. I'm not sure where this word landlord comes from. It's property owners. And they're also very concerned, just like you are. However, we disagree with what you're trying to do. Violently disagree. For example, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, you know, you gentlemen and ladies have a lot of authority. You have federal regulations that control this situation. You have state regulations that control this situation. You have county regulations that control this situation. And you have a very good code in the town of Elkton to control this, to do all the things I just mentioned that we all want. Mr. Mayor and Commissioner, these are hard times. In fact, probably in your lifetime, my lifetime, I've never seen times like this. You know, Mr. Mayor, you have people here in Elkton that are having their water turned off because they can't afford it. There's people here in Elkton that Delmarva Power has turned their power off. And some of these people, that's their heat also, because they have heat pumps. And this year, the treasurer tells me in Cecil County, 2010, they've never had a large number like they have this year of property owners that have not paid their taxes. These are tough times. And the list goes on. You know, 3 or 4 years ago, Elkton was sort of the go-to town. Everybody was excited. Streetscape, the hospital making big expansions, parking lots, the college. Everybody was excited about living in Elkton. I used to always take enjoyment. When I put a sign out at the Elkton Florist for apartment for rent, I'd have it rented that day. And sometimes I would get 30 phone calls. People want to live downtown in a nice apartment. They had a washer and dryer and central air. Walk to work. They used to rent people that work in public health, the hospital, the school board. They loved it. If I put a sign out today in Elkton, I'll get 3 to 5 calls. And when I tell them that property's on Main Street in Elkton, they would say, no, thank you. Because today, and I ask them why. Why would you like to live in a nice place downtown Elkton? You know what they tell me? The homeless, the crime. We even had somebody get killed here the other day, right? Just Stockton Street, right here. That's what people are concerned about. This ordinance you're trying to do is covered in every regulation that Department of the Army, Department of the State Department, the federal government, it's all there. This is nothing new. We just got to enforce it. Mayor, you know, you and I have talked about, I'm going to give Mr. George this list here. You and I have talked many, many times about blighted property in Elkton. And we know we have blighted property in Elkton. On this list, I just don't give you names, I just give the addresses. On this list, there's 3 of them on Main Street, Elkton. There's 1 of them on High Street. And there's 1 of them on Bridge Street. These 5 properties are blighted. By the way, these property owners, none of them are landlords. They're all property owners. These buildings are all boarded up. 4 of these 5 properties are owned by attorneys. 2 of these attorneys have offices here on Main Street. And no action. As long as I've been coming to this town, as long as I've been investing in this town, no action has ever been taken. These properties, 2 of them are boarded up. But the homeless pull the boards off and go in and live for a while, then they get boarded back up. No action. The mayor and the commissioners have authority to correct this. For example, and I'm going to make you mad now, The property on Bridge Street, if that property was located in Newark, Delaware, I guarantee you the mayor of Newark would own that property and it'd probably be Ball Diamonds or maybe a Parks and Rec Center today. That old piece of blighted property from RMR over there has been sitting there for years. No action. You have the authority to take that property. Mayor of Newark did it with a bud plan. That was 40 acres. EPA has paid money and had that property remediated. There it says. A guy, I'll even tell you his name, named Eric Schwab in Newark. There it says. It's blighted. No action. I've always been surprised, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, why you haven't taken action on these blighted properties. You have all the authority that you ever get. You right today have all the authority you need to correct all this stuff you're trying to collect this document, but you haven't done it. I love you guys and gals, but I'm telling you, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that you haven't taken action to clean up some of this property. And they're not landlords, they're property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Where we at here? Anyone else in that row? Next row? Last row? Anyone else? Mr. Stewart?
Do I have to go all up front?
No, you can.
Mayor and council, as you all know, in my tenure, I was against this from the start. What I see in this room tonight are the good tenants. I don't see any bad tenants. You're right. Landlords. Okay, thank you. But my question as a taxpayer, what is it, say you people decide what you're going to do and enforce this ordinance, have you looked at the cost efficiency on this? How many more inspectors you're going to have? How many more tax dollars is going to have to go to that? You have a 41-man police department. I think it's like time they start doing the job. I'll say it right here in public. And you know, this thing here, Joe, you've had on your work this for years to do this. You're blaming your inspector. He's a brand new inspector. But there's houses right down in here that have been burned out. And Faulkner's one of them. Has been burned out, and it's not even closed up properly. It's open to all the elements in the world. You think any of these people here have a property like that? What, you know, we talk, I haven't been to any, but I hear talk about the one up across the Presbyterian Church. It just stays there. Yeah, I knew it. But you don't see none of those people in here. You see the good people in here because they care. They care about Upton. That's all I've got to say. Well, I personally, as a taxpayer, would like to know how much it's going to cost us to implement this ordinance. And I'm talking about inspectors, paperwork, and everything like that. I think we need to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one last thing I'd like to say. I was worried about my 3 minutes running out. And what I needed to say, tenants pay landlords, okay? Homeowners pay mortgage companies. If we're going to be responsible, are we going to give the mortgage companies the police to homeowners to make sure that they keep them as well as we keep our places? Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. We wanted your comments, and this had.
Excuse me, just 1 second. I'm sorry about this, but I want to make a point here real quickly. I struggle constantly trying to get a good customer, whether it's in the rental business or the furniture business or whatever. But I feel with this ordinance, by putting more pressure on, instead of trying to get something together to work with us, we're going to drive all the good property owners out of town also. And they're going to be left with bad property, with all bad property owners. I think we have a handful of bad property owners if we could all work together on that. But the struggle for all of us in this room is getting good tenants. As Mr. Harris said, it's hard to find that good tenant today because of things going on around us that aren't in our control. So, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, again, I want to thank you because that's what we wanted to hear from you guys, is to help us make a decision, and so we can look at this thing as from your viewpoint. You know, like someone said, we're not landlords. You're right. So, but we just want to get your viewpoint to help us make a decision and what we want to do. So we certainly do appreciate everything you've said tonight, and we certainly will take everything you said in consideration. All right, Mark, last.
2 quick points I'd like to make as a landlord. Number one, the homeowner, what if the neighboring property was a homeowner and not a tenant? Or that property gets sold with the same person there. At that point, what do you do with that person? Also, a lot of us in this room became landlords because of a property that might have been in bad condition, or it was just a good business decision on our part, which actually was an asset to the town. I appreciate what you're doing, but you're going about it wrong. There's not a yard that I don't pay to have the grass cut that I own. Because I'm concerned, I want things looking good. I would love to be able to pat, there's been a lot of times I'd love to pat somebody on the back and tell them, get out, you got 30 days. Good luck. It doesn't work that way. So I do appreciate you. We're surrounded with a lot of good people. Look who's here. Let's take advantage of that. But how you're going about it is not right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, then this public hearing is now closed.
I'd like to take the first lead on this one, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well.
You know, I sit here, it hurts me to sit here and listen to all these comments about something that I was basically against this from day one. And to me, I've heard everything that I possibly wanted to say. Been here for 54 years in the town of Elkton. Don't plan on going any place. When I took oath to represent the town in the best way I know that's best for feasible for the town of Elkton. And for the ladies I know that live right around the street from where I was born and raised, I understand your issues, whether it's for or against this ordinance. I have checked into prices and found out the cost it would take to inspect a building before a landlord has a renter come in, and then you have to inspect when they leave. When I talk to other board members, we're not going to do that. But when we asked about this ordinance, we are already tied into a legal agreement by saying we're going to have you guys register your property. We turn to be landlord because we're actually having you put money up for property that you own. I'm totally against it. The thing that I'm trying to get to, and I'm going to not take I want to say so much, I have all this stuff written down, but it hurts me to watch and see us bring people in. It's good to see a crowd. I figured the best way to bring a crowd in is say something that they don't like, and you can get a whole room full of people. And I love having y'all here. But I'm going to make a motion that the board table this indefinitely because it's not feasible. It's not something that taxpayer dollars need to be spent on. It's something that is a waste of everybody's time because, like I said before, the codes that we have should be enforced by the code enforcer, and he or she should be able to enforce that. Once it gets to the legal system, it's in their hands, not ours. We shouldn't be the judge of deciding what the case is going to be. So I want to table it indefinitely.
And I will second that motion. And the reason I second that motion is we have and many of you have said it, it's in our code book. And you know, those of you who are at workshop, I had said it before, we have a good code here that needs to be enforced. And I agree with so many people out here, and even the two that were for the rental out here, we need to enforce this throughout the entire town of Elkton. not just whether it's a rental or it's all properties in Elkton. We need to enforce the code to make a better community for everyone. We're not just separate whether it's a rental or it's a homeowner's. You are the homeowners of those properties, so we need to just do it throughout. So that's
Don't have anything to say, or?
Of course, I've been in Elkton all my life, and I've seen the changes that Elkton has gone through. It's always good to be here. And particularly, I've been around the Desert Valos because I've seen them, particularly living around where I live, how they've come through and taken property that has been blighted, and they have done great things. And I know Mark, when he has bad tenants, he does get rid of them, and it's a plus. Mr. Willis, I've seen him, how he operates the homes that he has tenants in them, and I've seen a lot of others. There's good and bad with this, probably more bad than good. And Gary Stork, my concern too was the implementation of how you're going to do this. It could be very expensive. Basically, I'm on your side. We need to dismantle this and come up maybe with another way to make things better for everybody else. I know certainly we have had discussions here at the board, and I believe in the town of Elkton there are 47% rentals. And even though that be the case, you know, we need to do what's best for everybody, and that's where I stand.
Well, here I go. This is going to be a little bit unpopular. I do respect the opinions of all the landlords that came tonight. I believe you represent a majority, if not all, of the good and great landlords that Elkton has to offer. Unfortunately, having the experience of being in a position to enforce that, I can tell you that there's a need for something. There's a need for some type of vehicle in addition to what we have to help the entire community. This is not designed just to regulate you guys. It's to serve as, in my opinion, a vehicle for everyone's use. With that said, I mean, I can respect the fact to take this back, and with public comment that you know, I can't make a motion on a motion, but I wish that we would table it for further discussion and comments, and I think it's a work in progress. But I do think, and there's a higher percentage than 47% of rentals in this area, and it's growing, and it's something that can get out of hand, and I think we all need to take a serious look at it. And again, keep in mind that the bad landlords are not going to show up in places like this, okay? So you just need to keep that in mind. Like I said, it's not the most popular thing, but I had to run around and do a very unpopular job. And I think it was appreciated by a lot of individuals here as well. So I think we should really take a look at it. I'm not sure about the tabling it indefinitely. I do think we should table it for further discussion. And if that discussion takes, for whatever it takes, until we get it right, I think it warrants more discussion.
I respect that, Commissioner Hicks, but I just want to make a comment on my motion, for that motion, that if we're doing this for the landlords for a rental property, the rest of the town or the community should be involved in the same way. Their health, their responsibility is still on our hands. They're in the town of Elkton too. The other thing is, we talked about, I heard someone say, and I didn't have that conversation with them, but if we asked the landlords to tell how many people are in their household, I got 13 in my family. And when we have a family reunion, there might be 60 people in there. If there's a fire, they're going to say 13 people live there. Whose responsibility, like they said, is that? There's a fine line that we're really walking on that we should have no involvement whatsoever. And that's why my motion stands to table it indefinitely.
And again, I think we can, I can debate this with you all night. I think that's a little excessive as far as counting how many people are in a house. That's something that should not be considered. And I agree with you on that. But I stand firmly, and again, it's just my opinion. It's no way I think we should table this indefinitely.
Well,
there was just way too many circumstances that were actually dealt with.
There is a motion and a
Yeah, there is.
second.
We're discussing it. The thing is, too, just let me say, too, I do know we got all the good landlords here tonight. As the Commissioner said, we're not going to get the bad landlords. And that's why we want you guys to come out, and I think maybe indefinitely, it might be a little bit strong, but maybe what we should too is try to work with you guys and make something up where we can go get the bad landlords with your help to get them out of the way.
Joe, I made a motion. I made a motion.
I know.
We had legal guidance behind this. Now, if the legal guidance didn't give us all the legal stuff we need, why should we waste time for taxpayers' dollars paying a lawyer fee for something that we don't need to be working on? So I made the motion.
It's never a waste of time for the betterment of a community.
Well, we'll vote on it.
It's never a waste of time.
The betterment, wait a minute.
You can't say that.
We want Can I finish?
We make a vote.
Just for, if we're talking about the betterment of the community, Commissioner Gibbon, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Hicks, then we might want to add a couple things to our code for the entire community. Not make a rental agreement for landlords only. So this is, we're almost discriminating again, I feel, and I like a lot of things that people say, but I wrote down what everyone said, but Mr. Yodelbauer had said, charging the landlords to be our customers. And this is your business. And I personally want to be business friendly in the town of Elkton. And I just feel this is just, it's something that needs to be done for the entire town. Not just a landlord. If that property next to my house is a homeowner and it's in bad shape, well then our code enforcer needs to go after that person also.
Amen. And Mary Jo, I respectfully hear what you're saying. A business owner has to have a business license. The county has it. Everyone, that's a good example, but I tell you, I don't think it applies to what we're talking about here. I really do not. Business owners have to have business licenses. Why should it be any different?
Motion's on the table.
But there's still discussion. First of all, including myself, I think maybe we as a board may have taken the wrong approach. If there were things wrong with the town of Elkton for the licensing and everything else, then maybe we should have looked at it a way to incorporate people into the discussion. I'm a assistant principal and I deal with problems every day. That's the 75% of my job. And basically when kids come to my office, I listen and then I make a decision. And I think maybe we did it backwards. They shouldn't be here tonight. We spent 2 hours here. If we had problems, and the code enforcer, the town administrator, and myself included, we should have worked that out ourselves. It's good that we hear the people that come in here that have houses, that rent to people, but I still think we need to clean it up ourselves. That's our job, and we didn't do a good job with that. I appreciate the people that gave, very good opinions about the rental, appreciate it, and we've heard it. But maybe we should have done it another way. And I know, Joe, you're saying, we need to work with them now. Maybe that should have been done beforehand.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. So, do I have a motion to accept Commissioner Farner's motion?
Well, I second it.
A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carried.
I know you on the store out there.
You got the story wrong. This dog didn't bite me. It's bit my dog.